Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Ukrainian heavyweight Bohdan Myronets has picked up another scalp on the road. This time it's aspiring heavyweight prospect Jose Larduet defeating Larduet in Germany on a Universum card by split decision, and he picks up the WBC Francophone title and he got the decision 96-94, 97-93, and the other way 93-97. So this was a very good performance, and I think a lot of people, when this was announced, including myself, expected this was going to be a very tough fight for Jose Larduet, because until recent times, some of the opponents for Larduet have, it's been a mixed bag. Sometimes he'll get a decent opponent. Other times it feels like he's just sort of treading water. And Myronets has, and I'll say this now, outside of the sort of top 30, I think the past year and a half for him has been effectively, he's been one of the top performers, taking down on the road Kash, Nathan Gorman, also defeating Pavel Sau, that's not so much of a surprise, and now Jose Larduet. So he was the opponent for the Ali, Gorman and Larduet fights, and he's won them all, and deservingly so. And this one here was no different. And I have to say, because they had open scoring, after 8 rounds, one judge had it 79-73 for Jose Larduet, and in my view, that's either pure incompetence or pure corruption. There can be no other sort of views on that one, because that wasn't the fight that I was watching. And I think the winning of this fight for Myronets, who started really strong in this one, and was those first couple of rounds. He was able to box and move, but he was stepping in, landing that left hook with frequency, and that was a factor in the first couple of rounds. But because he started strong and he was able to work at a pace I don't think Larduet was comfortable working at, operating at, he made Larduet make a change. And from round 3, you did see a more aggressive Jose Larduet. And I think that contributed to Larduet's downfall, because he did have some good rounds 3 to rounds sort of 5, 6. And I think I gave him 3 of the 4 of those rounds. But he was working much harder, and we started to see Larduet's good jab just get put away. He was starting, especially as the fight wore on, effectively just to one-off shots, trying to, exact some punishment and revenge on some of the shots that Myronets was landing. And it did get quite scrappy there for a while. As Myronets himself tired a bit, he wasn't able to keep up the movement. There was more trading, and it wasn't a super clean fight. I mean, both these guys, sometimes there was a bit of leading with the head. Larduet was a little bit guilty of using the forearm a bit, sometimes a few low blows. And I think because it devolved a little bit from the technical standpoint, I think that suited Myronets. And you had Larduet, you could see, especially as round 7 and 8 sort of rocked round, he was starting to breathe a bit heavier. He wasn't landing as frequently, and he wasn't having as much success. And I gave the final few rounds to Bohdan Myronets, and this was the clinching of it. But he was able to make Larduet work. So, he is quite a tricky customer. He was able to, especially as the fight wore on, start to work in that uppercut. He was managing, especially at different points, the range quite well, and he was the one, as the taller guy, that had the opportunity to do that. And I think sometimes he did it quite well. Other times he just tried to really sort of stand and trade with Myronets. But it was a back and forth and a close contest where I think Myronets, especially in the second half of the fight, was just getting the better of it. Actually, after 8 rounds, you sort of knew, because they announced the 8-round open scoring right near the end of the 9th round. So you knew that if Myronets basically had one strong final round, that he was going to take this one, because after 4 rounds, the open scoring had a split draw, and it was also a split draw after 8 rounds. But that was clearly announced closer to the end of the night. So if Myronets had a strong final round, and he did, he was going to win this one. So barring any sort of incompetence or corruption, I knew that he was going to take this one after the bell was done, because Larduet was just, he just didn't have enough in the tank. And that's been one of the knocks on Larduet as well, that he's come in a bit too heavy. Probably because, he was, as an amateur, a much lighter fighter, but I think there's been a sort of confluence of factors where he's eaten himself to a weight he probably is artificially too high, but also that's hurt his conditioning. And in previous sort of post-fight reviews I've spoken about, he's tired and that's going to potentially catch up with him. And I think it has. Bohdan Myronets took advantage of Larduet starting to fade, and he was getting a bit more sloppy. He wasn't able to do some of the things that he can normally do when he's fresh, and Myronets was effectively fighting his fight, and this is where the winning of it was. He made Larduet fight early at a pace that he didn't want to fight at, and to some extent, heavyweight boxing is definitely, and boxing in general, a bit of a work rate sport. And he only had so much in the tank, and Myronets was able to exploit that, especially later in the fight. So, huge performance and win for Bohdan Myronets. Not necessarily a shock or a surprise. It is a minor upset of sorts. And given the form that I mentioned, that you've had Myronets having beaten Pavel Sauer, Nathan Gorman on the road, and Kash on the road, they were definitely at the time seen as upsets. But coming into this one, I think many observers knew that Bohdan Myronets, if he was able to continue just doing what he's doing, fight his own fight, he was going to have a very good shot in this one. And given it's been so patchy from Larduet in recent times, the last few years, about the opponents and the activity and how often he's been out, it looked like this was certainly there if Bohdan Myronets could fight his fight, and he did. So I've got no qualms about the winner here, that 97-93 to Jose Larduet. Yeah, don't see it. That's not the fight that I saw. Scored at 97-93 to Myronets, but I did have one round, I think it was round 4, where, that was a swing round for me. So my card, basically on par with two of the judges. How about yours? And who do you want to see Myronets in against next? Because he is one of these guys, and he's moved to a record of 10-1. The only loss on the record is against David Spilmont, who, as we know, he lost to Alan Babich a number of years ago. But I think Myronets is one of these guys who's been getting better and better and putting in these performances on the roads. He's going to get on the road. He's going to get noticed. He's going to get a better opportunity for a better payday. And I do think he does have his limitations, but a certain level, he is a guy that can give you very good work and rounds and is going to be a hard out, as the likes of Nathan Gorman, Kash and Jose Larduet have found out. Whether that's matchmakers underestimating Myronets, or those were the matchups that they needed, it was considered close to a 50-50, and they needed those fights to really prove where they were at. So Myronets, good result, good win. What did you make of it all? And what next for Jose Larduet? Kind of, limbo now to some extent. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.